Hello, everybody. I hope we are live. So, as you know, as you registered to attend this event, I'm Anka, and let's talk today about the proper support in our projects. And I will start a bit with a personal story. So I was 9 months pregnant. I was working 20-hour days. I asked for a break, but the organization I was working for couldn't afford one person down. And this is a story that happens all the time for organizations. But here's the thing, the real issue wasn't burnout. The real issue was the fact that we as a team were delivering average results. So no matter the effort, without proper support, without smart project scoping, the results are always average. So today we are here to discuss how to scale teams quickly, it doesn't matter if we are in events, in marketing, in tech, or in any other industry. And we will get an inside look at how top organizations are winning with agile talent strategies. So today with me, it's the amazing Megan Powers. Welcome, Megan. And let's do this.
Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm in California, so it's morning for me. Thanks so much for having me here. For those, some of you know me, I have had a couple of podcasts in the event space. I've been around for a while, just a little. Currently, I'm on the global events team at Oracle working in sponsorship operations, but I am a contractor, so not a true freelancer in that way, but I still have my own business that I've had since 2013, Powers of Marketing, and I am freelancing. I still have clients through that. So, but the bulk of my experience has been in audiovisual production, working with a lot of freelancers in that way, and in third-party events on the trade show side. So obviously a lot of local talent involved in that and all of that kind of good stuff. So I'm excited about the conversation today and just to sort of help you all facilitate the conversation. Thanks for having me.
So let's invite our guests. We have today with us 𝗚𝗲 he's the CEO of ExpoStars. And we have 𝗚𝗲_Bevers. They are our partners in 𝗵𝗿𝗆 event. 𝗚𝗲 is the CEO of Conversation Starter, the amazing platform we are using for B2B matchmaking. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anka, for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So maybe we tell a bit our audience, and we have some registrants attending from multiple type of industries. How do you start? Maybe you introduce yourself a little bit yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, so I'll let you go ahead.
Oh.
Ollie, why don't you go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right, okay.
Ollie.
Hi, everyone. I'm 𝗚𝗲, MD and CEO of ExpoStars. We're based here in Manchester in the UK. You probably sense that in my accent. I work in the world of trade show exhibitions. We've been in the business for about 17 years, and we work with a lot of freelancers. We actually have a network of 3,500 engagement professionals around the globe, all the way from California to Sydney, Australia. And we support companies when they go to trade shows to help them with the engagement process on the booth. So we have specialists in people who can do the emceeing, people who can do the face-to-face engagement, even magicians. So any kind of talent that can actually help you engage with your attendees, we actually provide. And every single person over the past 17 years has been individually vetted by us. So I'm going to talk more about that later on. So that's me. Over to Rutger.
All right, thank you. So my name is Rutger. I'm calling in from Antwerp in Belgium. I'm the CEO of Conversation Starter. We are a matchmaking platform. Some people call us the Tinder of business world. We unite different kinds of people, but always in a business setting. And yeah, we make people talk. So sometimes it's in a buyer-seller setting. Sometimes it's among academics to exchange knowledge. Sometimes it's in job fairs. So all kinds of different events where matchmaking is at its core. We make sure the right people meet each other, and we also help them into make an optimal schedule, make sure that meetings are well planned. So some of them are in person so that people meet at tables. We optimize that experience. Some of them are online. We integrate video calling and so on. We build an AI recommendation system that helps you find relevant people. So yeah, all that kind of stuff is where my passion is at. We've had over 200,000 one-on-one meetings facilitated in the last few years. We work with freelancers because there's a lot of differences in how busy business is, of course, during the year. Mostly on the operational side, not per se for producing events. That's the role of our client, but in supporting them, as well as every now and then we host some events of ourselves to promote our tool, to host some community events. And there we also work with different freelancers in all sorts of different ways, sometimes short, sometimes long, sometimes people nearby, sometimes people in Pakistan. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you so much. It's great. It's really great having you here. So how do we scope our projects? This is the main discussion, let's say, because we have generally in events and in everything, we have our in-house teams. So maybe this is for you. How do we plan ahead in such a proficient way that we not only do the mandatory steps that we have, like us in events, yes, we organize the registration platform, we are managing registrations, we in parallel plan everything if it's an in-person event. How do we do all this in advance so we know I have an event next March? How do we scope that event in March for best efficiency and to make sure no role is not filled and we have all the skills needed in the team? And yeah, how do we scope in fact the event and what we want that event to be? I think you are muted, sorry. No, you're unmuted.
That's a great question, and this is a challenge that we face with a lot of clients, and the advice that we always give is that planning should start at least 6 months out, okay? But even before that, when you actually have an event, you need to look at your calendar and actually plan this. So we're in the end of October, November now, and this is the time of the year where companies should be looking at what their plans are for next year and actually starting that process of planning ahead. But once you've actually committed to an event, you should start the plan out at least 6 months in advance. And the place to start is, and I'm going to contradict Simon Sinek here, he always says, start with why. But for me, it starts with what outcomes do you actually want from the event, okay? And then you can actually work backwards to actually understand why you're actually taking part in that event, and then what is actually required and what kind of people are actually required. And then you can start looking at the how in terms of planning ahead. So I think if you answer those questions, okay, I think that will actually give you a lot of structure in terms of planning your project as well. And when you look at what resources you actually have internally, and then you look at, right, where do you actually need the specialisms, okay? And I think this is where the scoping of the event is very, very important. You need to understand what job roles need filling, what qualities you need in those job roles, okay? And then to define in terms of what the process looks like to actually hire those people. And once you've got that in place, once you've got the outcomes and then the kind of people that you need, then you can actually start to plan ahead and really give yourself a lot of time and kind of discipline to actually get the results that you actually want. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yes, it does. So I'm thinking now, because I mostly worked in smaller teams, 1-2 people inside, in-house. This is how I worked. But for larger organizations, maybe Megan has better experience. What type of roles are mostly needed in events? Because in inside teams, and what I see in the Brussels bubble, yes, we have NGOs or associations, professional associations, most of them member driven. This is where my experience comes from. And they have, as I said, 1, 2, 3 people organizing events. They have flagship events, their yearly events. And those 2 people, 1, 2 people, organize everything. They handle absolutely everything. And this is why I was saying about average results. Even trade shows. I did trade shows. No, we had 3-5 not professional booths, but we called it an exhibition. It attracted some sponsors as well, unbelievably or not. It was not a trade show, but we were handling everything. So this is why I said average and mediocre results. Not all the time attendees feel it. Most of the time they think it, but they don't say it. How do you handle larger teams or larger events? My events had up to 400 people. And yes, I was handling it mostly alone. How, Megan, what's your experience with events and larger events? What type of, let's call it talent, skills? Yes, what type of skills and expertise are needed there beyond the in-house team?
So this is a big question. I think the one answer is you definitely can't assume anything with them. You need to meet. You need to have people in charge of them to make sure everyone understands the mission of the event, right? And like how they need to engage with the other, people working with you, with the sponsors, with the attendees, guests, participants, however you want to refer to them, depending on the size of the event. And yeah, I think more often than not, whenever I ran into challenges with freelance talent, it was because they were being hired locally. We hired someone to hire the local, the AV guys working the day-to-day on show site. And I have been burned by, of course, anyone can say anything at any time, right? And mess things up for you. Like that's just the nature of humans. But I think that it's important to make sure that the person who hired them understands exactly what you're looking for, but then not just to leave it to them, but to actually meet with these individuals together and make sure they understand, what not just what's expected of them in the role, but how to behave, how to not talk out of turn in front of someone who may know someone else. I have a very particular instance that I'm thinking of right now. I lost a really big deal because a local guy said something offhanded to someone he just thought was a guy just standing next to him. It was the speaker's husband that he made a derogatory comment about, and she was on the board of the association. So I had this 3-year deal. It was a $250,000 deal, and I lost the 3rd year because of that individual. So that for me, it always comes back to that for me on like, no one can be trusted. And that sounds terrible. But in terms of making sure that everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish up front, their over communication, I guess, is the moral of the story, right? And then staying in touch, keeping in touch with them as you go. I don't know if that answered your question completely.
Yes, I understood that.
Yeah.
When you manage freelancers, you have to both explain the individual role to each of them, but also the roles of the other members of the freelance team and the entire team. So they have a full and complete perspective on everybody's role, and then the role and the objectives of the entire team. Is this right, Lee?
Yeah.
Also, yeah. Lee, you are muted. Sorry.
One of the key things that we try to accomplish with our clients is to introduce our team and embed them within their with their own teams. Okay, so they get to know each other, because a lot of the time what will actually happen is, if you don't brief your internal team as to what roles the outside freelancers will actually play, you can actually build up a lot of resentment within the internal team, because the internal team will think that they're there actually to replace them. Okay, and sometimes they actually have this fear. So the key thing, again, before an event, maybe have a rehearsal day where you set the expectations, you introduce everyone, you introduce what their job roles are, you set the expectations, and then everybody is on the same page. Okay, and we've seen this a lot of the time where our clients, our exhibitors have actually left the briefing and they've not introduced the team, and then there's been like us and them kind of situation where they're not pulling in the same direction. So it's very, very important to set that time aside before an event to make sure that everybody has been introduced, everybody knows what each other's job role is, and then also have some, team bonding or something like that, so that what you have is a seamless operation. And one of the comments that we always get is, sometimes the attendees have not been able to tell the difference between the exhibitor's own staff and our staff, because they've been embedded in so well during the briefing process.
Yeah. So in exhibitions, when we speak about your clients, for example, when organizing an exhibition, what do we call the standard, let's say? What isn't, because I'm not talking about big expos. Yeah, let's talk about what organizations can do, because big expos in each field we kind of know. They are, yes, indeed, they know how to leverage freelance power completely.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because when we talk about, I am supposed to attend a large web summit, I don't know if you know it, now in Lisbon in November.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. That is huge. They have 90,000 attendees every year.
Yeah.
But that is something else. They have everything so planned to the point. They have subcontractors for housing. I do know that I didn't know that you can hire freelancers that are specialized exclusively in housing. I did all this, but yes, indeed, smaller level. I did it myself, the entire full thing. But for example, for organizations that have board meetings, they could hire a specialist to handle. We have a board meeting in Barcelona. How many board members do we have? 20, 30. You can hire a freelancer to, in fact, handle the entire housing situation of all the board members or all the attendees of this meeting. I didn't know this a few months back. I discovered it while freelancing now and discovering the big world around me. But so back to the exhibitions, large exhibitions. Exactly this, it's the point that instead of overworking a team, your in-house team, you can delegate, and these delegations are the key, no? Who handles housing? Who handles registration? Who handles the customer journey, the attendee journey? This is a very underrated thing in events. From what I've seen, I mean, most of organizations send an email, thank you for registering, this is the agenda, or go to our website, and that is it. It's so underrated and so underused. It's a missed opportunity for everybody. Take the attendee to a customer journey, take them to a journey, explain, bring new things every time, engage with them. And freelancers can take very easily this part. So when we talk about project scoping, how do we structure our events or our projects in such an efficient way so we have key responsibilities, and in this way, yes, that person that handles registrations, they really handle one thing and they do it impeccably. Is this viable to hire freelancer exactly like this for smaller tasks or bigger tasks?
Oh, absolutely. I think it starts with breaking down the actual event into bite-sized pieces, okay, and then looking at it with a microscope and looking at, okay, who are the best people to actually manage that element, okay? So you could have, for example, the booth setup, okay, could be done by local builders, okay, with a manager from your team overlooking them, okay? And then you have the housing, for example, that can be done by a local agency. Then you have the attendee journey, that can be done by specialists like us. And then you have, you know, the flower arranging, you have the hospitality, you have the catering, and everything else. And these are all specialist job roles. And 9 times out of 10, as an exhibitor or even as an event planner, we don't actually have the skill set in-house. Okay, so what we need to do is look at each element and look at what your budget is. Okay, do you have anyone internally to be able to do that part? And then if not, who is the best person to actually deliver that aspect? Okay, and then obviously the idea then is, I like to use a phrase quite often, and that's join the dots. Okay, because sometimes a lot of event teams can actually work in silos. Okay, so at some stage, what you need to do is bring everyone together and actually join the dots, because that will actually become apparent. For example, I went to IMEX just recently, and there's a big disconnect between the registration process, okay, and then going in to the actual event. So people weren't sure, okay, when they actually registered, how to actually get in and where do they actually start the journey. Okay, so they did the registration part. That was really, really efficient. But then the next part, okay, wasn't as sufficient. So these are the kind of things that, you know, event organizers and event planners really need to think about is, okay, this segment here will be done will be done by this team, but how will it actually impact the next segment? Okay, and then completely join the dots there. So it's really bringing the teams together and actually stop them working in silos. And maybe that is having a weekly catch-up and making sure that everybody is still on the same page, and see how everyone's progressing. So I think that's quite really breaking down to bite-sized pieces and then planning on that microscopic level.
Indeed. Yes, it's true. We do not think the entire journey. Yeah, this is this is an issue often met even in the largest, most important events of the market. Yeah,
I attended a session actually that talked about being better greeters. It sounded like, it sounds like a silly thing, but really how everyone has this responsibility or should have this responsibility throughout. And I said, to your point, Lee, like I walked up to registration and it was like, yeah, just put your name in, and they just spit it out and they just hand it to you. And she said, and she joked, like, it was like, oh yeah, just do that. And then she like kind of turned her back, and it's like, that's exactly it. To your point, that it was a great show, but that definitely is a missing piece. Let's get 𝗏𝗏 in on the chat. What do you think about? I mean, we've touched on budgeting, but what are your thoughts on how to properly budget, and what are things that hirers can do to like stay within budget while using freelancers?
Well, I've had bad experiences on both sides. I've had people working with a very clearly predefined price, and then you see that they, after a while, stop working, get slower because they're running out of time. Defined. I've had people working on a specific hour rate, but then you'll see that they might not be working that efficient anymore because they want to do more hours. So I think honestly, frequently I try to work together with the same freelancers as much as I can. And because then after a while you get an intuitive feel for them. I don't know if you can still hear me because I don't see you guys moving anymore, your heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, but this is another discussion we had about hourly rates versus project rates. We had this this whole discussion this week on Tuesday, and most freelancers, not most, there are freelancers that indeed take hourly rates, but anyway, in all these, I believe that the results are measured, or the final product, let's say, the deliverable. And in the same time, there are freelancers working on project fees. So this is the full fee. I'm doing it. Of course, I will do it at my best because I need the recommendations. And
well, you can also, I mean, the to your point, 𝗏𝗏, if you've worked with them before, they have an idea of how many hours it's going to take to get that event done, right? So then you can go to that. And what I did, last year I had an event that I had worked the previous year, and I said, okay, this is exactly how many hours it took me to do this last year. So this is my estimate based on what my hourly is, right? But this is the number. And they tried to give me a flat fee, which was, you know, $1,700 something lower than what, and I said, well, no, because I know that this is what it's going to take me, so you're going to essentially undercut me. And I said, so the compromise was, how about a not to exceed? So we can say if it's going to take me more than 90 hours, I'll read you in.
Do as well, but not just only when it's exceeding, but also when it's about to exceed, because otherwise you're with your back against the wall. Like, we need to understand how far they are and how that's going. So, and the more I work with the same people, the less frequently I have to do that, because you sort of start to find each other. But definitely with new people, frequent check-ins on how they're progressing and in their budget.
But you know, I had this question from the freelancers registering for 𝗏𝗏 event pricing. And yes, of course, to remain within budget is one of the maybe most important things for hirers, for any event organizer. So this comes to Liz and to the platform, to come to Conversation Starter and to our matchmaking. When it comes to pricing, the best approach, I believe it is, the hirer simply states, this is my budget, and then the negotiation part, of course, which is normal and it's always needed. But the point is that if this comes to the discussion, the pricing and the budget, we need to find solutions to align them somehow, no? Ahead of, ideally, Lee, you can, ideally it's ahead of the discussion. It's part of the freelancers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about, I think I made this point on Tuesday, is that it's all about building the value. Okay, it's really looking at the outcomes and the objectives of what the client is actually looking for. And then, you know, putting that value, because you can charge something, but if your client doesn't actually see the value, or the exhibit planner or the organizer doesn't see the value in what you've got to offer, then of course there's going to be a mismatch. Okay, so then people always ask me, I always get this objection of where, or you're too expensive. Okay, and my question to that is, you've not built up the value enough, and the client doesn't actually realize that what you're actually offering does not, you know, in their eyes, meet the value that they actually put on their pain point, or the challenge, or the objectives that they're trying to deliver. So there is going to be that conversation to be actually had. And we have this conversation with our clients all the time. Staffing is a very competitive marketplace out there in the world. There are so many different factors in terms of, you look at people's experience, you've got to look at the location, you've got to look at the local economy. So there's lots and lots of different factors, and you need to be able to communicate that. And also, for the exhibit planners and the organizers, they've got to educate themselves in terms of what the local rates actually are. Because again, there's a big mismatch in terms of, if a client from the US is exhibiting in Germany, or the other way around, actually, if somebody is actually exhibiting in Germany and they go to the US, they will actually have a big shock in terms of what the costs are. Okay, and the same with somebody from Eastern Europe, maybe coming to the UK or going to Scandinavia. There's going to be a huge difference in terms of what the local rates are and what they're actually charging in other countries. So I think doing your homework in terms of what the local economy is like, what people pay for their taxes, and what the living costs are, that will give you a better indication. Because we get, again, a lot of companies from Eastern Europe, in Turkey, India, the Far East, and we actually have to sit down and actually explain what the local economy is actually like and why their budget is completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
So that brings a great point. I actually want to know from that, how are you finding your freelancers? I know that this is a hirer's call, but we had a lot of freelancers register because they want the insight, right? How do they get hired? How do they get found by you guys? Rutger, how do you find your freelancers?
Yeah, networking. Honestly, I've been CEO now for about 10 years. I ask people that I trust, and I hear who they are working with.
Okay.
That works the best for me, honestly. And when I have someone new, I always try to have sort of an informal chat with them. Not only like, do you have these and these skills, but if I can, I would like to meet them in person and have a drink if it's for like a larger project. Of course, it's not always possible if it's someone working remotely. And I think if I cannot find someone through my network, I enjoy hanging out at events and talking to people, just, and I try to not focus on their skills, but more throwing them more difficult questions to see if they understand what they're doing. I mean, like, not like, are you a copywriter, but more like, how would you write something that makes a person realize a thing that they've never thought about, or something. I don't know, throw them a difficult question, see if they really understand. See if they can understand the results of their work. Yeah,
trust factor. It sounds like it's part of everything, right? It's not just in hiring suppliers or getting hired.
That's why I like these events that you guys are hosting, because you can actually have a personal conversation. You're not just emailing a bunch of people and get their offers back in the PDF, but you can have a quick chat with someone. You can very easily feel in a personal conversation, is this someone with sort of the same energy that we have as an organization that fits, what we're doing. I think that's super powerful what you guys are doing there.
But this was the point, yeah, and to go back a bit to the discussion is the value of freelancers. This is one thing, because for me, yes, I dream of a world where we do not necessarily scope freelancers specifically for tasks, but more for their unique perspective, wider experience, because they work with multiple type of organization clients. They bring in something that in-house teams do not have. This is, yes, we come as an addition, we come as support to the in-house team, but we come with a perspective that they do not have. They are inside. They know how they did things. They most probably do things the same way they did for 10 years because it's working, or they do not have that. I have my service on my website, the service I bring in that, how did I put it? Fresh, objective, outside perspective. This is so much needed in any industry.
I think there's a big opportunity for freelancers to more personalize the way they present themselves. So often I get a very generic a resume that I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but like, bring me your story. Why are you relevant? Maybe you've done 5 other projects in the past. Which one was most relevant for what I'm doing? You know, that's what I want to hear. And I think that's a big opportunity, both for matchmakers as well as for the freelancers themselves, to bring more of a personalized story.
This is why
Absolutely,
I find the
yeah.
matchmaking part very a unique approach. Yes, it's not an interview. You cannot have an interview in 15 minutes. This is clear. You cannot get to know a person in 15 minutes. But this is very challenging for freelancers like myself to pitch my talent, exactly how you, 𝗚𝗏𝗧, put it, with tell me your story. I have a few minutes to tell my story, or what have I learned? What do I bring new? My value proposition, yeah? And then I'm focusing on the hirer. And then I need to know about you. What's your project scope? What do you want to achieve? And again, it always comes to value, yes, to what do I bring new, but also what do I bring new to what you need as a hirer. So for me, this 15-minute matchmaking, it's a unique approach, and it must be implemented. I see it as a must, because you get to know some people, even if your project is in October next year.
Yeah.
You get to meet some people right now. You have a list that you can call. And again, yes, how you said, 𝗚𝗏𝗧, you prefer to work with the same people over and over. But it's again, what about the fresh perspective?
Yeah, true. Yeah, and I think for people participating in the matchmaking event, think about what's the thing that you want to ask from other people, and think about what's the thing that you want to share about yourself. Be strategic about that. As a little tip that I can give you if you participate in the event.
Yeah, I think one question that we always ask is, what is the one superpower that you can bring to our clients' activation? I think that really gets them to open up in terms of how they actually see their own value and what skill sets they can actually bring. And the other point I wanted to make on hiring freelancers is that it's just like hiring full-time people. Okay, you've got to go through the same processes. Okay, because the big thing for me is to ask that question: can I trust this person to actually turn up and do a professional job? Okay, and if the answer is no during that engagement process, then I will not work with that person. All right. So, and we treat when we onboard our freelancers, we treat them. We treat the process exactly like a full-time hiring process. So we evaluate their CV. We invite them for a one-to-one interview. Then we also have them do a communication style test as well, because we want to know if their communication style is appropriate for the job role that they actually need to do. Okay, and we can do as much as possible. But one thing I've always found, and this is a caveat, is that we are human beings. So we cannot control. Yeah, we forget this. And also you cannot control fate and destiny as well. So some people have a bereavement, for example, or they may have an accident on the way to the project, or there's lots and lots of different factors to put in there. But I think what you have to also always allow is that people are human, and then also to have a contingency plan if that person, if something happens to them, then you need to have a backup in place. And I think that's where a lot of companies, again, sometimes because of budgets, okay, they forget this, all right? And then the event happens. Obviously, we have a finite time on the event. We can't move the event, okay? It has to be done on those times and on those days. So you need to have a backup plan. And then the backup plan needs to be organized when you do the planning, okay? So you need to ask the question, what if the worst case scenario actually happens? What's our, what's our course of action? Okay, who do we turn to? And again, sometimes we don't look at, what potentially could go wrong to be able to make those contingency plans.
Yeah, that's a great point. And for us as a tech provider, we always try to have more than one contact with access to the platform. People can manage their events, they can see who are planning meetings on our matchmaking platform and so on. But often you see that for some reason, somebody has to drop out because they're sick or whatever. So I think everybody in the whole supply chain basically should be aware of this, that people can suddenly have to leave for some reason, and we need to plan a little bit ahead. And one of the ways that we do that is just by making sure that there are multiple people with accounts, so you don't get stuck suddenly like, oh, we have to log in here with a password to see the registrations. Oh, we can't. So and it's these little things that everybody has this awareness in their mind that has helped us prevent a lot of issues. I think you're muted.
You're muted, Anka.
I am lucky with the pop-up that told me I'm muted. This is the main challenge for smaller teams. Sorry, my outside noise. With smaller teams, because exactly, we all have budgets, and maybe we talk a bit more about this and sponsorship. We must speak more sponsorship in everything. Everybody has budgets. Any organization starts with the budget. For me, it's really not smart as any type of leader if you do not have contingency plans, exactly how Lee put it, for team members to drop down for one reason or another, for jobs or positions that become irreplaceable because nobody else in the team knows how to do the other person's job. This is, I believe, the biggest risk in any type of organizational management out there.
Yeah, especially with events, you have such a short time frame. So it's always a bit of help with God you need, right? So help from God.
This is how burnout comes also.
Yes.
But in the same time, this is how leadership fails. When you don't know how to replace your team members, or nobody.
A lot is if you have the people in your team, whether they're freelancers or not, if they understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, I find people to be much more likely to help out, to say, okay, look, there's this person missing. I have to do some extra time, but I understand it's important because I see there's these people coming and they need to talk to these other people. This event needs to be a success because they understand that they're not just doing some tasks. They're part of a change that will be made by the event. So that's why I always try to spend good time when working with freelancers, that they really understand the big picture. Why is this event taking place? Why is it happening? And I can see them dropping in, doing tasks that I never asked them to do because they understand it.
This is reliable. Yeah, that is how reliable support. It's something else. Megan, tell us about sponsorship, because again, nothing exists without sponsorship or funding. Or tell us a little bit about that world in events and beyond.
Well, obviously, sponsorship is a cost recovery function, right? You are trying to help fund your event. For some, it's also they're trying to make a profit. In corporate world, generally, my experience is that it's an effort to try and pay for the event, pay for part of the event, but also it's a way to get partners in front of the customers, right? So they're doing it for that reason, generally speaking. So for me, it's a very high touch. And in the role that I'm in right now, it's interesting because I'm trying to give them a better experience than I got when I was on the other side, being the sponsor and the kind of service that I was getting as an exhibitor at their show and the kind of things that were getting fulfilled, because I think that there should be a very white glove experience with sponsors. And this is, I think, too, when freelancers come into play, if you do have freelancers on show site, to make sure they fully understand the gravity of how important these partners are, and the sponsorship that they're providing, to not just treat them like another exhibitor, but to treat them very much like they are a partner in your show and in the success of the event. And having good freelancers, to everyone's point, right, and who are familiar with the show and with the the gravity of how important they are, I think is super important. And expressing that to them up front, if it's, if they're new to the event, making sure that they really understand how important they are. You're not just like giving them a monitor and a stand, right? You're helping them have a better experience. And like, I guess, and the matchmaking thing, right? Like, who do they want to connect with? You should have those conversations too about what are they trying to accomplish beyond just getting in front of customers, but is there anything that we can do to help you connect with the people you want to connect with and accomplish their goals? I think that's the thing that gets missed a lot, is understanding what your sponsors, what your exhibitors are trying to accomplish, and not getting mired in the detail of the logistics of it, but to really understand that, and then not just understand up front, but then to circle back, not just how did you feel anecdotally, was this a good show for you, but a follow-up, months later or whatever, like how did you do? Did you close any business from this event? And if you did or didn't, how can I help you next time? Like I have a show that I did in the spring. It was my first event with Oracle on the inside. I have been an AV provider for them before, but now we're starting to talk about next year, and I want to reach out to those partners and find out from them. I have had conversations with David Dubois and Kathy Breeden. They're no longer the head of IAEE and SEER, but I think that this is a piece that we're missing that's very hard because sales cycles are long, but getting that big picture of true value, not just anecdotally, but the data of what business came from this. And again, it can be hard because it could be 6 months or a year before someone closes a deal. I actually did my master's thesis on my master's was on face-to-face versus online communication within the context of trade shows. So very specific, and a lot of interesting data came out of that. And I did that out of the 0809
I've never met an organization doing that. Lee, in Europe at least. Lee, do they send emails, or do they generally want to find out post-exhibition, post-trade show?
I think this is a big struggle. Beyond the first email, I think there's about some research I did. There's 70% of exhibitors do not follow up after the initial email. So technology is great, and again, I made this point on LinkedIn a while ago. I think a lot of people hide behind the technology when it comes to that post-show engagement. And what we need to do is take that personal touch to actually connect with people, have those meaningful conversations on the booth, and then continue that conversation after the event. But beyond emails, if you look at emails, most of them end up in the spam folder. And if you look at the open rates, it's like if you get 1 or 2% to open, that's a really good hit rate. So it's really a question of setting up the follow-up process on the booth, not actually explaining to the client what's actually going to happen next. And it's very scary. I mean, when you really look at, I went to IMEX and I had quite a few meetings, and about 50% of them have followed up with me already, and 50% actually haven't. And we're 2 weeks out now, I think, from the event. So you spend all of this money. Some companies have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on being present at the event. And for them, collecting that badge scan or collecting that business card, for some of them was the end of the event. And that's quite scary. So it's really looking at the fuller picture. And this is why we take the approach when we work with our clients to say, right, what does the process look like right up until your prospective clients actually sign on the dotted line, okay? And it does not stop at just scanning the badge.
Yeah, collecting people. Okay, you're muted. Collecting people shouldn't be the goal. Collecting like scans should not be the goal.
Absolutely.
But you collect them for what? What is the purpose? So we go again to the project scoping. a booth in one exhibition, it's a project. Yeah, we are attending that exhibition. It's my project. That is my project. What is my scope? What do I want to achieve? Why don't I engage afterwards? It's a problem, of course. But also going back to the event, to the exhibition organizer, how many of them contact the exhibitors beyond the point of sale. So I sold it. I sold a stand, I sold, and that's bye-bye. So how many of them?
That's the topic of, I'm doing a session tomorrow at a small event in London, run by Exhibition News. And I'll be talking about exhibitor success, whose responsibility is it? And one of the areas that we're going to talk about is the onboarding process. What happens to the exhibitor once they actually signed up to the show? And it'll be really interesting to get the perspectives of the exhibition organizers on how they actually support their exhibitors, and not to sign up for the show, not to take their sponsorship money, but how to actually get that end return on investment, or the return on objectives, or the return on experience, whatever you want to call it these days. So that'll be really, really interesting to hear. So I'll be doing like an interactive session, and I look forward to hearing their thoughts in terms of, where the responsibility lies for the exhibitor success. Is it with the exhibitor themselves, or should the organizer play some role in that in terms of educating them and onboarding them to set the expectations as well?
I think it's a combo platter.
Exactly. It should come to both of them, of course. I mean, the exhibitor shouldn't rely on the organizer. They will do my job for me, of course. And the organizer shouldn't just sell a booth, because, and then they shouldn't stop caring.
So this all comes back. This is like full circle moment, right? Because this comes back to, well, then we're on to as an organizer, we're on to the next. And so part of that might be a staffing issue, right? We are shorthanded, especially these days. So many people left the industry. And that's what I've heard the most since COVID, is that everyone is stretched thin now because we lost so many quality people. And so I guess, how do we recruit freelancers? How do we get people to come back? And maybe they don't want to work in-house. Maybe they want to be a freelancer. So where's that opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's advocacy. I think everyone in the events industry has a responsibility to go out there and promote the world of events and exhibitions. What we've noticed since the pandemic is we lost, I think, 30 or 40% of our freelancers during pandemic because they went into full-time jobs. So that put a lot of pressure on us to actually now to replace them. And then also in terms of recruitment, actually getting people into the industry, because nobody, especially here in the UK, nobody goes into their marketing degree or goes to university thinking, I want a career in events or exhibitions. Okay. And again,
say nobody.
Yeah.
There are education. There are degrees in it, so I wouldn't say nobody.
Yeah.
I'm just
no, I mean, like in terms of exhibitions, people doing other degrees. So, for example, marketing degrees or business management degrees, we need to kind of go and attract those people and turn them on to events.
That's fair.
No, because we have, the event industry has this reputation of overwork, never a standard. You don't work from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
This comes as a norm, as not normal as it is. But also it depends from country to country. In Belgium, the salary range is not the best as well. And I will not even speak about Romania. But this is the issue also. So yes, the event, you must leave them. But the problem is, again, with not being enough staffs, and we will be forced in the near future, because attendees got way smarter. People generally, they got way smarter about how they spend their time. It's an exchange. I might pay for this event, give me value for my payment. I might pay attention to this event, so I will give you my time, give me value for my time. So it always comes back to value. And how I see it, event organizers who don't understand this, the entire value chain of an attendee and how to make that attendee feel involved, feel important, get value from your event. Exactly every step that we spoke in the beginning.
That's
From
very
the
short.
website. Yeah.
You often see the short-sightedness of event organizers, not realizing that if people don't come to your event and go home with a couple of great new connections, they're not going to come back over the next few years, or they might just, go on LinkedIn and send out direct invitations to connect and just drop people a Google Meet link and connect like that. Like, I think the time of just throwing people in a room, people are starting to realize they don't have time because they are stretched so thin. So I think that's one thing, to use a bit of a longer term mindset. And that's another thing that we are seeing among organizers, is that when they use technology like ours, they can actually follow up a couple months later and reach out to people and say, these are the people that you met. What came out of that? Because often you forget, this new project, it came via that person. But if you get a list of the people that you actually met, you might say, it was via that person. And so organizers really love that, because then they can use that as a marketing material and say, look, this is what actually came out of our events, for our exhibitors, for our attendees.
But this is the point, yes, that events are changing. They are moving from a place of content to a place of connection. This is how priorities are shifting for attendees everywhere.
Absolutely. Content's available anywhere online.
Content we can find online. Content we can find on Google, on platforms, we want connections. This is something else. So for the connection.
Isn't that interesting that we've come full circle, as Megan said before, and now we're looking for those human-to-human connections, but we're putting technology in the way.
Well, I had an event, an MPI event. I'm a VP of education for San Diego MPI, and 80% of the people were there for the education. So here we are. Like, it totally depends on the event, and it was a small event, so I will say that. But that to me spoke to, we had more planners attend than normally attend, and so for me that said, because our education was good. And we had a planner breakfast where they got to just talk to each other, knowing that they wouldn't be sold to, really. And so I think it was a combo of that and getting to interact with each other in a different way, in a more casual, but also it was facilitated. So we were like getting them to talk to each other for that peer-to-peer. And they said that was a great way to start the day. But on the question, what was your primary reason for registering for the event? 80% of them said education. So,
oh wow, okay. I think
again, with a combo platter.
I think that kind of experience where you can engage in peer-to-peer learning, I think that is the sweet spot for everyone right now. Is to because when you go to an event, obviously you have to take the initial step and actually engage with people, and not everyone feels comfortable to engage with people. And there's a lot of networking events that I go to where they have an open bar and they just leave people to introduce themselves to each other. Whereas if the event was actually facilitated with peer-to-peer learning, where they put groups of people together with similar interests or with similar challenges, that creates easier connection and a much more enjoyable evening, because people don't feel that friction.
Well, actually, Liz Lathan posted yesterday, I think she said like only 7% of events actually have someone in charge of helping people network and connect with each other.
That's
it's
scary.
Crazy. Yeah,
I find that crazy as well, because we sell a solution to make that happen, right? And I think the number one reason that event organizers don't do it is because they're running out of time. And the main question that we get is, how much work is this to set up the networking, and not how good is the networking, right? Because you could facilitate networking in different ways, but people are always asking, how does this integrate, and how is this little time to set up? But they don't really care about the end value. And I guess it's because they are so thinly stretched that they can't do it anymore. And that's why you need freelancers to bring those people in, so you can actually create long-term value for your people and have them return and have them talk about your event.
Exactly.
That's where you can get the freelancers in, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
That is all we are saying. So it's time for our wrap up. It was amazing. Thank you so much. I didn't even notice when the time passed. I hope it was so interesting for our viewers as well. The recording will remain available both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And to recap a little bit, we have just 2 more webinars, one for freelancers on Tuesday and one for hirers on Thursday. And then the matchmaking begins. On Tuesday, next Tuesday, we are planning to send the invitations to all our registrants, meaning, and here Rutger can intervene a little bit, we still need to go up, on the process and how it works together. They will receive an invitation. They will build their profile. It's very easy to build. You need to scope your project. What is your event that you want freelancers for? So you need, as a hirer, you need to scope your project. As a freelancer, you need to power pitch. What's your superpower? And then you will have 2-3 days, because we will give maximum 3 days to everybody to build in their profiles, to find the perfect wording, because we limit things, so you cannot upload a CV or a novel there. We have everything very summarized. So everybody builds their profile. We give people 3-4 days, and then on they have a few days to actually book meetings, so to study profiles, to see who's registered, to see the freelancers, the freelancers that the system gives as a result, because we have AI, yes, and according with what a hirer needs, they find freelancers, and freelancers, according with their skills and expertise and desired project, they receive matches. Yeah, then they book one-on-one meetings, and they have the meetings during 5-7 of November. So it's so close by. It's just a few days by.
All right, I'm very excited to see how the event will turn out.
Us too. It is a unique approach to this. So online matchmaking like this in the event industry doesn't exist. So we have a unique approach. Let's see
in
that
different
approach works.
industries. We see it popping up in different industries. We just recently had a really big event between travel influencers and like countries and travel destinations. Matchmaking, it was huge, but they had like, I think it was their 5th edition or so, but yeah, it works wonders.
Exactly, because you get, I would make this in real estate, in so many fields. You know, when I'm searching for a place to move, I really would like to know my neighbors ahead of time a bit. So my potential neighbors. Here is an idea. So yes,
okay,
I see this as the future of business. It's this is the secret. I really see this the future of business, matching ahead of time, offer and demand projects, ideas, and yes, let's see if I'm right or wrong. So see everybody next week, and thank you so much for joining. It was an absolutely great discussion.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Anka. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.